John, this is the Arcade1up. He's actually using your product in it.
No, I've seen this. I definitely seen this, and I have to take this back to our engineering because that looks amazing.
Dude,
here's the thing: if there's a demand for something like this, I'm pretty sure Scott's on board.
There's a demand.
What's up, guys? David from Unqualified Critics. The Retro Buzz hosted John D from Arcade1up, and there's always news when John is interviewed. He's not quite as buttoned down as David McIntosh or other representatives of the company, and he tends to let some stuff slip, which is why it's always fun watching his interviews. So there is some news out of this discussion, and what I want to do for you today is break down all the key action item news that we got from that interview. Now I'll put a link below to watch the entire show. Key topics here: Arcade1up addresses the sit-down Star Wars conversion that someone did a YouTube video on. Really in-depth mod that we're going to hear more about that and Arcade1up's reaction to it, and it's actually pretty interesting. There might be some product implications there. We're going to hear about DLC. Are we going to get Arcade1up DLC? It sounds like probably yes. So John will cover that. And we know that virtual pinball is coming in 2020. So let's take a look at the interview with John and the Retro Buzz.
That is dope.
Come on.
You haven't seen I love that.
Okay. I was about to say, the way he was talking, I was like, I don't think he's talking about the same video.
John,
it's not the same video.
John, this is the Arcade1up. He's actually using your product in it.
So most of you watching this video probably know who he's referring to here. Scott is the CEO of Arcade1up, and we heard it straight from John D. If there is a demand, he's pretty sure Scott's on board with this. So what we're talking about here is a custom Arcade1up conversion. Very detailed, very involved, and it replicates the original sit-down version of the Star Wars Atari cabinet. Not just giving us a bench like you get from Arcade1up, but giving you the whole overhead cockpit type view. It was really faithful to the original, but it was built foundationally from the Arcade1up Star Wars cabinet. I think a lot of people would be excited to see Arcade1up do something that truly replicates a sit-down cab from the old arcade days. I think most of us agree the bench probably isn't far enough, but if you're going to give us a cockpit, that's pretty awesome. I was surprised to hear this. I didn't expect it. My view has been Arcade1up won't ever give us anything that can't be flat packed into a box that's going to fit on retail shelves, but apparently anything's possible.
Downloadable games is something that we are looking into, and see how that works according to our business model. I mean, first and foremost, our bread and butter is like being able to replicate the look and feel of an arcades from back in the 80s and 90s, right? Whether it's the artwork or the correct emulation.
There's a lot of talk of Wi-Fi, and even DLC is specifically singled out by John in this interview. It sounds to me like the direction they're very much leaning into is not a multicade. That's where they get questions about that. That's what people want to hear about. I don't think that's the direction they go in. I don't think it's the direction they should go in. And after watching this interview, really feel like they've honed in on their strategy. I think what we will see next is a wave of cabinets with expandable libraries, but those libraries being publisher specific. It's going to be an extension and a modernization of their existing strategy. So for people expecting another Legends Ultimate cabinet, I don't see it. I think Arcade1up, and they mentioned this term white space. What he's talking about, you may have also heard this called a blue ocean. A lot of names for this in corporate marketing, but the idea is this would be a place where there's not a ton of competition. And in fact, white space, zero competition. So if they're going to do really premium cabinets that are expandable, but still publisher specific and still artwork and branding specific, well, nobody has done that yet. And I agree that that's a very natural extension of the Arcade1up brand. It won't require any reworking of the brand. It would just be a 2.0 situation where it's taking what they already have that their existing audience likes and truly taking it to the next level, versus switching to a multicade is really catering to a different market altogether.
In terms of having a console-based system, that's something we're looking into, but that's all I can say at this point.
To clarify, I think when he says console-based system, he's talking about a multi-cade. They're not talking about a home console. It's the language here is kind of confusing, but they keep saying console-based, and the caller does the same thing in relation to the Legends Ultimate. So they're really talking multi-cade here.
The one thing that we will have, though, definitely we're looking into more Wi-Fi and online player capabilities. I think that's a good niche for us. Like starting with NBA Jam.
Yeah.
Our version is the first version to ever be able to play online multiplayer. And so if you look at other games that are coming out that are, retro based, I think that is a great lane to be. Basically, we spent a lot of development trying to make these games new again, and having them online multiplayer is one thing. And also being able to update from time to time. Maybe there can be different features of a game that we initially released, and later on down the line, there could be some sort of DLC model. That's definitely possible. But having a game system or console like, ad games, that's something that we have to figure out. Does that make sense for us?
All right, so again, I take this to mean Arcade1up is very seriously planning, not just considering, but planning a DLC-enabled cabinet. Later in the video, it's probably not worth playing here, but they start getting off topic and really going into like Dreamcast and the possibility of a Dreamcast Mini. And there's talk of mini consoles, like a NES Mini or Dreamcast Mini, that is online DLC expandable. And so that comes up. Only reason I bring this up, John D, even though he's from Arcade1up, they don't do mini consoles, he gets really excited and really animated. This concept of being able to buy and download retro games to your console or to your arcade cabinet in this particular situation seems to be a big deal, and you can tell this is just a huge topic at Arcade1up right now, and it should be. I'll put a link above. I did a video pretty recently, within the last few weeks, talking about how this ought to be the next leg of Arcade1up's strategy. They've now sold 1 million cabinets. If you're a developer or a publisher, you will take an audience of 1 million people who can buy your game very seriously. That's an important milestone. That's an important threshold. There's a reason they got so much press around it. And people who buy home arcade systems tend to have deeper pockets. Now, I know a lot of us run around and look for sales, and we always want a good deal. But at the end of the day, if you're paying even $200 for a standalone cabinet that only plays a couple games, you can afford to indulge in your hobby a bit. This is a hobbyist, enthusiast kind of product. So these are folks that will pay money and that will buy more games. And Arcade1up clearly knows that.
Mini consoles. There's nothing's changing with them, right? There's just delayed due to the pandemic, but they're still coming out.
They're still coming out. It's definitely being delayed. We've had to reevaluate our product line and give resources to what we felt needed to be prioritized, and those resources are prioritized to kind of the forfeit cabinets and the countercades and partycades and all that. We're still going to come out with the plug and plays and all that, and that the mini consoles just had to we had to just kind of production wise had to take a step back, but they're definitely coming out. I just don't think it's going to come out this year.
All right, so to confuse things further with everyone using the word console a lot, in this case they're talking about the actual console. These are the old school. I think there was like in television, I think there was an Atari option. There were a few. They showed this at CES very briefly. It didn't seem to be a big focus of their floor. But these are, they say mini console. I'd almost call them a micro console. They're very small. They include a little tiny LCD that looks like an old school television. Pretty cool product. I could see this being popular as like a birthday or Christmas gift for children, for example. Or just a neat thing to collect and put on your shelf, especially with them being self-contained. So it's a minor product. This isn't a major point for Arcade1up, and clearly the news here, the product is still underway, but it is also delayed. And we are unlikely to see this product in 2021. I think there will be a number of people who are excited for it, though. I'm kind of on wait and see. I want to see what the consoles are that they actually launch, the games that they actually come with. If you're the kind of person that has a shelf with retro gaming type stuff, I mean, this would be perfect to throw on there. So good news, it's still coming. Bad news, delayed until 2021.
Pinball still happening this year?
Hell yeah, pinball's still happening, and we're excited. We'll likely have some updates towards the end of this week or next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Around June 5th, potentially?
Possibly.
So June 5th was mentioned earlier as a special event on IGN.com. It's meant to sort of fill the void that E3 left. We now know that that's when Arcade1up will make a lot of really big announcements. Potentially one announcement that's going to rock the community. That's David McIntosh's wording that he's used. This is where they're going to put their chips on the table, it sounds like. E3 is where they'd save their biggest announcements. At least that's what they said at CES. So those announcements are still out there. We know these products are still coming. And we now know, most importantly, that Pinball is still coming. They've been radio silent on digital pinball ever since they really talked about it at CES. But it's coming in 2020. Exciting stuff. Alright, so I'm just going to run through the other news items quickly that were covered. On international distribution, they've been asked, have you made any progress? And they're telling us that yes, they've still made a lot of progress, and you'll start seeing late summer and fall for product availability in Europe and Australia. That's the first time we've had a specific timeline beyond 2020. John was asked about a 3/4 scale claw machine, and I'm so glad somebody called in to ask about this. There's been a lot of buzz in the community about people wanting a 3/4 scale system, people looking to complete their arcade, and I was pretty impressed and shocked. But John says they've heard loud and clear that there's demand, and they are exploring it, but they want to make sure that there won't be a lot of mechanical complexity or issues, and getting it down to a consumer price point. Those are the two challenges that John singled out. So it looks like they want to do it, but they haven't yet found a way in product development to do it cost effectively and do it in a way that will be reliable for all of us. I kind of expected, if they ever did a claw machine, for them to do some kind of virtual claw machine. This isn't a company that's manufacturing a lot of mechanical parts. We know that their customer support is already overburdened just with the existing cabinets that they sell, which are pretty simplistic. So that has to always be a concern for them, is, are we going to overwhelm our customer support infrastructure? And if we sell you something with a little motor and gears and all this mechanical movement, is that something we as a company can explore and support? For that reason, I thought they'd never do it, but they're actually exploring it, and it sounds like they see a market there. So fingers crossed. Next, John was asked about a Tetris cabinet. Why don't we have a Tetris cabinet? It's a good question. It's an iconic game. Tetris was, of course, an arcade game, but it was also originally available on PC, and famously it was on the NES and a million other consoles. But there was an arcade version, and there were multiple arcade versions, and John seems to think, from a just market study perspective, Tetris is not viable as a full-size cabinet, and that it would make more sense as a countercade. So licensing doesn't sound like it's necessarily the issue, although he did say multiple license holders owning Tetris. But the Tetris company has done a really good job, I believe, cleaning up their licensing and making sure that it's available to people. And we've seen tons of releases recently, even as recently as a year or so ago with Tetris 99 on Switch. I know that's not the original Tetris, but you can correct me in the comments if you have any insight on this. But I believe Tetris company now owns everything. On trade-ins, John was very cool when asked about trade-ins, and cool as in kind of disinterested. There wasn't a lot of talk of it. He did say they're looking into loading PCBs with different games, so maybe being able to swap in a PCB. So we talked about trade-in. The question was, is it a PCB swap program or a component swap program, or is it swapping the whole cabinet? Sounds like Arcade1up isn't really sure how it'll work either, and they're just beginning to explore, but this is not being actively planned, I don't believe, after listening to John. The 12-in-1 cabinet. So I have one of these in my office, and this was interesting in that when it was released, there wasn't a lot of fanfare or hype around it, but now that the 12-in-1 is pretty much unavailable at retail, people seem to be scrambling to want some of these older cabinets. I think it's a little interesting because there's all this new stuff that's coming out that's just so much better built, better looking cabinets, and in many cases more interesting games, but that of course is subjective. But there's no denying there is demand for a 12-in-1, and John seems to have a pet project of wanting to reissue the 12-in-1 but with a Tempest cabinet chassis and in that custom triangular geometric Tempest shape. So pretty neat idea. I think they could sell some units. John said if they do that, and they want to do it, but there's no definitive plan, that it will be available just straight from their website. Alright, so with all that, let's look at one last clip from the Retro Bros.
I can't wait. That driving cab is oh, I don't know if we're gonna release a driving
It's
cab.
I think this is as clear an indicator as we're going to get that there will be a racing cab announced quite soon. I don't think they'd be talking that fast and loose if this wasn't imminent. And now my bet is that on June 5 for the IGN event, big Arcade1up announcement, potentially multiple announcements. My money right now is on us getting a racing game announcement. Now, do I believe it's a 3D racer like Daytona USA or similar? No, I do not. I'd love for that to be the case. That'd be awesome. That would shake the community. I don't think it's coming yet. I think that we're going to see like an Outrun cabinet or some other, maybe even a late stage 2D racer. I don't think it's going to be pole position because I don't think there's enough hype for a game like that. Outrun though would be huge. So that, I think that's a good pick. But who knows? It could be a number of different racing games. I've covered this extensively in a different video predicting which racing cabs I think we can expect. There are several possibilities, but mark it down here. I'm putting a line in the sand. I think we will see a racing game announcement June 5th, and I'm excited to see what they come up with. They seem to be really confident that this announcement is going to garner a lot of enthusiasm, and that alone is worth getting excited. That's all I have for now. This is going to be the quiet before the storm. June 5th, we're going to get lots of big news. I'll be sure and report that back to you guys and let you know what I think about it. And let me know what you think below. What do you think we're going to get in June 5th? Give me your predictions. What are you hoping to see in June 5th from Arcade1up? And what do you think about this DLC model versus a multicade? I think it's a very simple path to take as a fan to say, oh, they should just do a multicade. But I don't think that's true to Arcade1up's brand. I think the DLC model makes more sense. What do you guys think? Would you pay to download extra games to your existing Arcade1up cabinets? Or is that not worth your time when you can have a Legends Ultimate and just sideload any games you want? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.